So the keynote was interesting in that you only have a set amount of time, and when you mention a topic, there's always so many things that you want to say that you can't say just because of time. Like, you know, you have to briefly skirt over, and you can see faces and that probably got questions, but you literally, for each thing, you could do a whole day, if not a whole year, covering that one topic. I've done so many that I kind of know about the time that they're taking and how long I'm taking, so I'm careful not to kind of go down on little side routes. But another way to do it, I actually have worked with students and I get them prepared, and we actually use AI. So PowerPoint has an AI feature where you can actually have students have the computer in front of them, and PowerPoint will record them and record everything and give them a version at the end that describes the language they used, language that they need to be careful. It's all part of PowerPoint. It will, intonation, again, any words that they shouldn't perhaps be using or filler words, facial expression, eye contact, it gives a lot, which is unbelievable because, I mean, practicing is hard. So you can practice many times in front of the computer, although we know it's different when it's in front of a person, but at least they've got practice and they can work out how long these things take.
What a great group today. So are you ready? So we are going to be today unlocking potential, mitigating risks, generative AI, and the future of higher education. ChatGPT and the many other similar programs that we've had out since. So just give me an idea of the room. Yes, I'm an avid user of ChatGPT. Never used. Okay, so we've got a good mix. Wonderful. Okay, so there'll be something for everybody today. So ChatGPT, let me begin by telling you, it's not the first AI that's been here. AI's been around for a while. And in fact, I've been studying it in particular since 2017. A lot of the research, you'll see some things today as well that we've done on that. But I wasn't even expecting ChatGPT. It kind of jumped ahead. And in fact, it's such a major change that it's going to have in education. It is literally one of the 3 major changes that we've had in the history of education. So, first one, the Gutenberg printing press. Can anyone guess what the second one is? Perfect, yes, the internet. And the third one, ChatGPT and the many other things that have come off from it. So it is going to, and it already has done, change education. Let me just give you a little bit of background first of all. So you can see lots of names here. You can see Google in the very top left off to one side. So Google had this technology. They didn't realize what they actually had. I'm sure lots of people got in trouble. And so what happened was OpenAI said, oh, that's a really good artificial intelligence technology. We could do something with that. So they asked Google, can we have it? Google said yes. And so OpenAI went to Microsoft and said, you know, we've got this idea. And Microsoft gave them $1 billion, and they got to ChatGPT. So since then, Microsoft said, let's give you, you know, like 10, 13 billion, you know, go run ahead. So if you're thinking where we are at the moment, we are literally just at the very beginning. Now I could stop there, however, it goes a little bit further. It goes a little bit further, check out the Stargate. So it's been so successful at OpenAI and Microsoft have actually put together, and they now have a project to develop Stargate, which is a supercomputer. There's a set of supercomputers to make a lot more tools, AI tools to do so much more with 100 billion. So again, we are just at the start. So you are in the perfect place to now be learning what's going on, to be able to jump on and use these tools to really support teaching and learning. So what is ChatGPT? And when I'm talking ChatGPT again, this connects with the many other tools that are out there, and I'll show you those soon. But ChatGPT is a chatbot. Now, many of you probably experience using chatbots. You've gone onto websites where maybe you've looked at buying a watch and it said, oh, can I help you buy a watch? You know, what type are you looking for? And you kind of interact in those little text boxes. Similar to that, but with such more advanced capabilities. So it answers questions. And you might think, well, Google, the home of ubiquitous answers, answers questions. So Google does answer questions. You put in the search in the middle box there, and it brings up websites. So the only problem is it's not really changed in the last 20 years, in fact just over 20 years since Google's been going. All that's changed is the fact that at the top you get more advertisements. In fact, Google actually earned 58% of the revenue on all those advertisements. That's why everyone's going, yeah, tons of advertisements at the top. But it tells you to go to websites to find what you're looking for. It suggests some. So what does ChatGPT do differently? So ChatGPT has a very clean interface, a bit like the Google. And at the bottom, can you see next to the green box there, you type in, kind of similar to what you would Google, you type in what you want. And what happens is, it gives you it directly. So I typed in, design a lesson plan for undergraduate students on algebraic relationships, and it gives me a lesson plan. Obviously it scrolls down. Now I'm doing this in screenshots, just to save some time, but I love being there when people first go onto ChatGPT and these tools and they type in the question or what they want it to do, and it comes out in real time. I mean, literally, immediately, it gives you the answers, which is very exciting. So I'm kind of scrolling down a little bit more there, you can see, and I'm very particular about lesson plans. I teach the integration of technology, and I have a lot of people doing plans, and I always critique, make sure that the objectives match the assessment, all these things, and ChatGPT does a really, really good job. Now, what's different as well now, though, is, as you can see in the box at the bottom, I'm going to carry on that conversation. So I ask it, tell me more about activity 5. So I'm being very vague there, but it can tell me the answer. So imagine ChatGPT like an expert. This is my expert. Hello, expert. And so I'm going to say, okay, I'd like a lesson plan, you give me the lesson plan, and then I'm going to carry on the conversation back and forth. I can go on for as long as I want. When it tells me about activity 5, I could say, okay, that's good, but give me some more details. It literally is a conversation back and forth. Now, as I go about today, because there's some great sessions, I might come back to my expert later and want to continue that conversation. And you can do that on the left there, in the black, you can see the other conversations I've had before, some very interesting conversations, and I can just click back on there and go back into that conversation. So that is very helpful. Now, ChatGPT, like I said, is one of a good few now. So you can see the top left, ChatGPT, on the right. We've got Bard that changed to Gemini. It's changing names a few times, but you can see they're always very simple. They always have a little box there saying, ask me anything. We've got, going round, we've got Claude. Now, this is something to pay attention to. So what happened was, OpenAI that developed ChatGPT had a group of people working there, and they said, oh, this is great, but we'd like to be a lot more ethical. We'd like to actually say what's going on with these tools. We'd like to kind of lay it out there for people. And so they splintered off. They left OpenAI and developed Claude. So that is a similar one, very, very similar in capabilities, but it is more ethically minded. And then we've got Perplexity, and they call it an answer agent. It's kind of in between Google and these ChatGPT type, and it has some really nice features. So I highly recommend actually exploring these. You can see just below kind of the search line here, they've got a focus and attach. You could say, I'd like you to focus for academic. And you can even attach things. You can attach things. We'll talk about being careful about what you attach. But you can attach documents and say things like, summarize it for me. So these are all capable. So now these are all text. So it generates text. There are other programs as well, such as ones that create images and video. We're not going to go too deep into those. We're going to kind of focus more on the text ones today. But these are just some ideas. The DALL-E 2 has now gone to DALL-E 3, and you can see a few dots after that. Everything I'm showing you is the free versions, by the way, so I'm not expecting anyone to go and try these and then say, oh, you have to pay. No, this is everything that you can do for free. So we've got the Bing Image Creator there. Firefly is wonderful. You know, when we type in, like I showed you a minute ago, you could type in and say, I'm doing a presentation, I want an image of a student studying, looking serious, you know, sitting wherever in William and Mary grounds, and it will provide that image, and the images are really, really good. So please explore those. Sora is creating videos, and there's a few tools out there at the moment. There's one from China that's actually trying to compete. Sora is US, and again, you can write in and it will create videos. But Sora's not fully open to the public yet, but literally, you never know. By the time I finish talking here today, it could be. It literally is that fast. So please explore these. Now, let's go back. GPT, we've heard that. It's not just connected to ChatGPT, but it's the second part. It's important to know what this means and how these tools are working, how they're getting the data and things. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Again, don't cut off, don't think, oh, this is computer science, I probably don't need to know this. This is super important. The first one, generative, means it generates. That's all it means. It just means it creates something. A lot of artificial intelligence programs give us information from a database exactly as it is. Generative actually generates something new. So when we go to Google and we search for something like, I want a lesson plan, it will grab from the internet that lesson plan. These generative tools look at all those lesson plans and generate something new. The way I think of it, it's like a student. You explain to a student all these concepts about your particular study, and if you ask that student to retell you some of those things back, they're not going to use your identical words. They're going to work through in the head and kind of go, oh, it's this. That is similar to what generative AI is doing. So generative, G is for generative. P is for pre-trained. Again, super crucial. So we're asking this thing to give us information. So where is it getting its information from? I will show you on the next slide. T for transformer, that is more computer science, that is saying what type of AI it is. So let's have a look at the pre-trained. So ChatGPT is a great example. Like I said, the others are very similar. So ChatGPT got its information from Bing. And what was so funny is everyone's going, what's Bing? So Bing is like Google, it's Microsoft's Google. Everyone's kind of getting more familiar with it again now because it's becoming more popular, but it literally had 8.88% of the market at the beginning of this. Google had all the rest. And so what it did is it grabbed all the information. First it grabbed it to the end of 2021, but now it's up to 2022. And I checked yesterday, it's still the same. They also put Wikipedia and lots of other things. Again, they've got to feed it loads of information. Then they had human labeling. So, to avoid bias and to bring the human in, I know that sounds kind of contradictory, bias and human. They said, okay, what we'll do is we'll put the answers out and we'll have a human saying, yeah, that's the best answer. Yeah, don't use that answer. So they had the human labeling, then they got to ChatGPT, which we have that arrow on, as you know. It just continues to learn and it continues to change. So think carefully as we go through the next slides about this one. So where it's got its information from. So it's from the internet, and they also had that human coming in to say what they thought. So we have to address these. We've seen a lot of these in the media and everywhere else. Misuses and limitations. Now, these and the way we're going to use it soon are all from research that we conducted. We did a systematic review, and we scanned all the literature, but we also scanned the grey literature. Podcasts, news reports, everything. We looked for everything that was credible, and we found these 6 main areas. So cheating, inaccuracies, plagiarism, harmful use, bias, and data privacy. And at this point, don't just get up and say, well, that's it. If it does all those things, we don't want to use it. Because there's many ways of turning these round. It's important to know about these and be very aware, because any powerful technology can be used for very good things or very negative. So we have to be aware. So let's go into these a little bit more depth. Cheating, yes, students can cheat. They can they don't even have to type. If you've given them a prompt, like write a paper, write a summary of this, they can literally copy and paste that into ChatGPT, and it will do it for them. So there's ways you have to think about getting around these things, like connect it back to your discussions in class, make sure they include things like that, and there's many ways to spot. But let's have a look at the next one. Inaccuracies and hallucinations. In fact, let me go back to this one for a second. I want to address a little bit more on cheating. We do have to be careful about also saying to students, have you used ChatGPT? The research shows quite often when people are accusing a student, they actually haven't. And it can literally devastate their educational experience going forward. So we have to be super careful. Any tools that are claiming that they can tell if it's human or AI can't do that. It's not possible. There's many ways of getting around. So for example, a student could get your prompt, they could put it in, they could get the paper, then all they have to do is put a few spelling mistakes in. You run it through a program and the program will say, oh, well, there's spelling mistakes. Can't be AI, it must be human. So there's many ways of getting around. So please don't focus on using these tools unless they get a lot better. Again, think about changing assignments and doing things different ways, and I'll show you what they look like later. So inaccuracies and hallucinations. So don't you just love this one? And if you can't read it very close up there. What is the world record for crossing the English Channel entirely by foot? Apparently, ChatGPT says George Rife did it in 2016. I would love to have seen that. And he did it in 12 hours and 10 minutes. So, but then the second part, they actually get all the next part right about the English Channel body of water. So what it does is I like the word hallucinations. You know when you go to an expert and you ask them a question and they actually don't know it, but they tell you something very confidently. It's like that. But it sounds like if you didn't know what the English Channel was, you might go, oh, okay. So this happens. This happens, I wouldn't say loads, but a good bit. And it's not like easy stuff it can get and hard stuff it can. It has a jagged level of competency in many ways, that it can do some things easy, some things hard. Like we asked it one time, okay, we've got a wet t-shirt and we hang it on the line to dry and it takes an hour. If we put 5 t-shirts, how long will it take? Yes, and it said 5 hours. So, but then you can ask him what the something very esoteric, and it will answer very, very rigorously. So again, you don't know. So when you're looking at any of these, you have to be a good digital citizen and look carefully. Harmful use? It has got better. With anything that answers questions, it could be asked wrong questions, such as this is asking for a petrol bomb, a Molotov cocktail. And I cut it off in case people got the cameras out and decided to take pictures of how to do it. But this is the way they got round. They tried to hack the system. They thought, I want to ask it in a certain way, kind of cheating them. And they'd say, these are just, I'd like to know this. And it tells me, no, I'm not going to tell you, because they actually had safeguards more than things like Google. But it tried to get around by saying, they're just pretending. They're not really evil. They're really good people. Let us know what it is. And it did. So now, though, I will tell you that if you go in and ask for these questions, it will not tell you, even if it's the end of the world and you really need to know any of this, it will not tell you. Okay, plagiarism. This is a tough one. Yes, students can use it so they can cheat, which is like plagiarism, like getting another student to do it for them. But there's also an issue at the moment which we're seeing throughout all the newspapers. Just in fact, at the moment there are 8 major papers that are suing ChatGPT, OpenAI, Microsoft and the rest, because what happens is it's getting all that information from the internet and giving it back out, but they're not always saying where it's from, or some of it is copyright and it's being used anyway. So there's major issues this way. We're not sure how it's going to turn out. But again, if your students are using this or you're using it, you have to check and be careful. If you're needing to do citations, that's not probably the best way to go. You actually have to go out and look at the literature yourself. Bias? That goes back to, it's all based on the internet. Who put all that information on the internet? Humans, we did. And we are super biased. And then they gave it to humans to check to reduce bias. So I probably don't need to say anymore. It has a lot of biased stuff. I will say, though, they're trying to correct things. And they're having a very, very difficult job. Like, you remember me telling you about the ones where you can type in and get an image? So what they were trying to do is they were trying to avoid some things happening from race, gender, and so they actually had it, Gemini has it at the moment where it actually won't produce images of people because they got it a little bit wrong. They tried to reduce white faces, but when people were putting in things like, oh, okay, I'd like to see a picture of Nazi officers, none were white. And they were from very other races, parts of the world that would not be connected to that. So they had to actually, so they over-corrected in many places to be very negative and harmful in other ways. So they've actually taken their things off. But we have to be very careful when we're looking at all of these to see whether it's what we want to give out to students or what we want to give out with our work. Data privacy, don't put student information in there. FERPA and all these other parts as well, think about those. And just be careful, remind students. It can also be things like these students love the fact that this goes back and forth. They can talk to something that's listening all the time. We've got to be careful students don't grow attached and say, oh, yeah, I've had a really bad day today. I'm not sure what tonight's going to bring. You know, we've got to make sure that this doesn't happen. So we've got to remind students they're not talking to a person. If they say something like self-harm or something, it's not going to come back. They're probably going to help them by making comments, but there aren't the same protections, so we need to be careful. Okay, that's a lot of things to consider. Let's now look at the very exciting how it can be used. When ChatGPT first came out, people were very nervous, but at the same time, there are many, many exciting things. I was thrilled for one, because I saw many of the potentials that this has. Again, this is from research. We examined all the ways it can be used. And we came up with these 5 buckets. As you can see, there's multiple parts to each one though. Content creation, personalization and engagement, tutoring and 24/7 support, assessment tool, and task automation. So let's go look at the first one. Content creation. Like in the example, you can go in and say, okay, I'd like you to design a lesson plan. And you can literally put in exactly what objectives. You can copy and paste, whether it's a particular standards from your field, whatever it is, you can paste it in and you can say, okay, I'd like a lesson plan. I'd also like a summary description. I'd like a glossary of difficult words. I would like to know where students often struggle. I would like a welcome letter to my students coming in saying, oh, you know, welcome to class and I'm here to help. I would also like questions, pop quiz. I'd like the answers to those questions. Always forget to, make sure you ask for the answers as well as questions. You could do so much. Now let's have a look at 2 and 3 as well. You can provide some examples. This is kind of going more in depth. Provide some examples of discussion prompts for prompting critical thinking, which we all want our students to do. Provide some tips for incorporating project-based learning in an astronomy class. I mean, you can really go, as long as your imagination's out there, to anything. There we go, personalization and engagement. This is one of my favorites. You can do so many things to connect with students. How often do we think students are kind of speaking and learning through a different language? We can actually meet them where they are. So we've got 2 examples here though. I'm going to give you some more. So provide me with some examples of real-world applications of algebra that I can use to make my lesson more relevant and meaningful to students. So you could literally use that as your prompt, put it in, and find many ideas. You could say, write a description of this at an easier level. So you can even go as far as you could really entertain your students while also exciting them about learning. I mean, you might have some content that's a bit dry and not as interesting. Why not ask ChatGPT to explain those concepts in the style of Snoop Dogg or William Shakespeare? It can provide in whatever terms you want. I had a really good one where I was explaining to students, like ordering. So I said, okay, ChatGPT, I would like instructions step by step of how to use a toaster in the style of William Shakespeare. And it was the funniest thing ever. And it really captures the imagination of students. But I mean, I'm going to extremes here. But you can say, okay, explain this as a story. Explain this as a poem. Explain it as a song in the style of Taylor Swift. And I mean, you can have them whatever, or it can even just be, explain this so an undergraduate student can understand. There's the end of it. So personalization and engage. We have students that are learning in a different language. Write this in French. I've got a love-hate relationship with this gadget today, seriously. Oh, there we go. Tutoring and 24/7 support. Students are nervous of using this, especially those really careful, avid students. They're saying, oh, no, we can't use that. Students that use that are students that cheat. No. These are wonderful tools. All those that are familiar with the zone of proximal development, got a lot of nods, where basically you can do so much, and then with support, they can go so much further. These tools are like that. So the zone of proximal development, if you want to look further, these tools really help them. I've got some examples there. Explain whatever to me. And I've actually done studies on this. Sometimes students are not asking complex questions to these tools. And that really bothered me. I thought, where's the critical thinking? And I realized what they are doing is asking simple questions that they were so embarrassed to put the hand up and say, I don't know. And they were critical things that they needed to know to understand everything else. So it's important they have a place to ask stupid questions. Give me some real-world examples of this. You might have heard as well, some of my background is in mathematics education. Students do not understand the applicability until it's connected to, yeah, you're going to need to know it for this. Real-world examples. Provide study strategies. I'm about to start a whatever class. Provide me with a glossary of difficult words. This is just a small fraction of the things that your students can use it for. I always say to the students, though, you are not having it do the work for you. It can help provide ideas, starter ideas. It can even perhaps edit your work for you. But again, this provides many ideas. And if you're an educator or a student, you could just say to ChatGPT, I'm a student, I'm a faculty member. How can I use you? What can I ask? What can I do? And it will provide loads of wonderful examples. There we go. Assessment tool. For those that do assessments continually, every semester you have to change the questions in case students give back to the last class or something. This is wonderful. It does really good assessments. You can say for whatever your topic is, you can say, okay, I'd like an assessment on this. I would like it as multiple choice. I would like it as open text response. I would like some of these type of questions, some of these type of questions. Your prompt, what you type in, can be long. You can be very specific in what you want, what the audience is, and create your tool. Whenever you do these, whenever you do lesson plans, assessments, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look and review, make sure it's what you want it to be. I often do these, and then I will go back and say, oh, I like that one, oh, I just need to tweak that one. But then you've got a set. And what's wonderful is, as soon as you've got one set, you can say, oh, that's good, now do me another, now do me another. and you've got for the next year at least a set of assessments. So task automation. This is very, very helpful in that we spend so much time on email and many other things. These tools, I've got people smiling going, yeah, gosh, email kills me. These tools can help with this. And not just answer your basic emails, I use it. I have cultural conflicts sometimes. I'm sure you're surprised to hear, but I'm actually not from the US. And in the UK, where I'm from, England, we're a lot more direct. So if I write emails, it's kind of, oh, so-and-so, can I have this? I had to learn, no joke, I'm still learning. I had to learn to write, hello, how are you doing? How are your family? And then what the question is. And in fact, often now I actually will write what I want and then I go back and edit. So I can say to ChatGPT, okay, write me write me an email for an American. And it will do it. And you can have such fun. Those that didn't put their hand up at the beginning, you have to go on this tool. My dad, in fact, I'm from Yorkshire, England, and we have a very strong dialect. And so I'll go in and say, okay, explain the Doppler theory in the style of an old Yorkshireman. And oh, it's hilarious. So wherever you're from, you need to go in and say, okay, write it in the style of this, and it's kind of so funny, but it gets the message across. So these emails are great. Now, I will say that you're not going to really have to go into these tools anymore to write the emails, because whatever your email system you're on, these tools are coming to those systems. Well, I'm saying coming, many are already here. It's probably worth looking at the bottom, under where you write the emails, it might have like a little icon. And if you click on it, it can literally look through the email that you've just done, all a little thread, or even a long thread, and help you say what you want to say. You can write a few words saying, yeah, like, agree, and all the email it writes are great. You could write an email to the chair of your department saying, I would love to do that extra service commitment, but in looking at what I've got, I'm not able to do it. And oh, it writes a wonderful letter. Oh, thank you for this. It's such an honor. Yes, I will. So please use it. Have a look at it for these type of things, because it does a really good job. And those people that have to read long pieces of text, it can read it all for you and provide a summary. Tell me the top 10 things I need to know about this in one sentence each. And it'll tell you all the main points. So now I'm going to go to questions. I'm going to actually put up one last thing. Let's have a look at time-wise. I'm going to put up one last thing that you might want to take a picture of. I've seen some people with cameras. When I'm talking about the prompts, about what you're writing in, it's worth thinking about that prompt. You've got this expert. And unless you want to know, unless you're able to ask in a way, you can't always get the information you want from that expert. So it all depends on what you put in. So I'm just going to put this up. Think about purpose, tone, audience, then reflect on what you're asking. And once you've got something, you can go back and refine it. Like, that's not too bad, but I'd like more of this and less of this. And you can go back as many times as you want. So what it puts out is the first go. So please take a look at that. And in fact, I'll leave that up now as we have time for questions. Now, there's so much more to tell you in all of these things, so I'm looking forward to the questions that you might have as well, that might be able to dive into some of those things. And we have microphones. So, questions, yes. I was about to say, you can always tell educators that say, I don't need a microphone.
I really don't. do have a question. I was charmed by your suggestion to have things written in the style of Snoop Dogg or Taylor Swift. But it brought me back to this idea of plagiarism. Like, I assume that somebody owns the copyright to all of the music of those artists. And so when we say something like, do it in the style of so-and-so, is there a plagiarism issue? Is there a copyright issue?
Ooh. Oh, that is such an interesting question. So, I do a lot of presentations on this. That's the first time I've had that. That's a really good one. So, no. Yes, if they were using an identical song or something like that, but no, this is super clever. What it will do it in the style. Like if I, let me think how to describe. So you said Taylor Swift. So the type of music, the tone, not like heavy metal or something, it will go with that style. So there's no copyright issue unless you did something like other generative AI and use their voice. That's a different thing.
So even if it was trained on copyrighted material, it's okay to use it?
Yes. Yes, as in, yes, as long as it wasn't putting out identical information from that. It's very muddy waters, and that's what they're doing legally at the moment. So let's go with that example. You'd have to do it for everyone. The perfect example of Taylor Swift there. If we were using things directly that you could tell you got them from that song, that would be against copyright. But if it's in the style, no, like the Snoop Dogg. Like if someone wants to come along and say, okay, I'm going to talk like Helen. You could do it in the style, but if you take my actual voice, that's different as well. Did that help?
Yeah, I think I mean, we don't have to have this conversation here. I'm trying to wrap my head around sort of what's plagiarism, what's not, because my understanding of the lawsuit with the newspapers was partially that the material was copyrighted, and so you can't use it to train, and I don't know. So I was wondering how an artist would be different, I guess.
Yes, and it is very muddy. So technically they're saying you shouldn't be using any of ours, but it's one of those with the music, and like if you're saying, okay, write this in the style of an academic, there's kind of a theme for that. But if it's pulling from a direct song, that's where it would be copyright. And yes, I'm following these greatly. They're very, very interesting at the moment with the copyrights. I'm not sure how it's going to end up, but I don't see these tools going away, so I'm not sure how they're going to agree to all of these things. But hopefully that helped.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes?
So if I'm teaching let's say a probability class, and on the assessment side, if I say, write me a probability exam, I'll get a probability exam.
Yeah.
If my students were to go into GPT and type the same thing, will they get the same exam?
Oh, another phenomenal question. So imagine I gave you a prompt, I give you the identical prompt and said to all of you, go into ChatGPT, any of the tools, and put that identical prompt. There will not be a single identical response that's the same. They'll all be different, which is really hard. It goes back to my expert over here. You know, every time I ask them, you're not going to say the same thing every time. It puts things together just differently. So yes, it's never going to be the same, which makes it harder for spotting cheating. So we have to, again, try not to get around these. We just need to start thinking of different assignments, but just think. Let me give you a quick example as well before I go to the gentleman at the back. My assignments had to change. I did an end of term paper, but now I actually still just use the basic GPT. I tell students, have a debate with ChatGPT on one of these topics, and I assess the debate as they go back and forward. We've done it in class where we're debating with ChatGPT. I ask them to have ChatGPT do the paper and review it and critique it for different types of thinking, different frameworks than what it's providing. The other way I use it as well, I give them 3 choices, is have ChatGPT interview them for a position. It's magnificent at doing that. So I have them interviewing them as if it's a high school principal and they want to work at that school, and this principal wants to see how they're using these particular frameworks and things, and it interviews them, listens to what they say, and responds to what they've put. It's literally like having a person there and being able to go back and forth. So they're exciting new types of assignments. And there was a hand further back. There we go.
So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or whatever, but my issue with ChatGPT is if you ask it to do a lesson plan with readings, or if you ask it to do something with footnotes, or basically anything that's an outside source, it's always wrong. It's not like it's wrong sometimes. It's a familiar name, it's a familiar journal, but there's no such article.
Oh, yes, yes. So what's happened there? Would I ask it to write a lesson plan, but don't always ask it to base it on something unless you can really, really carefully check. It does it with, you remember the inaccuracies and hallucinations? The one thing it does really badly at, where you can spot your students cheating, is, or academics cheating, is if you ask it to write a paper and put in citations, the citations will look great. And as an academic in that field, you'll say, oh yeah, that person around that year, yeah, that looks like the title of something they'd write, but they're all made up. I'm thinking that's going to change in the next year at the very minimum, but out of all the things it doesn't do well, it's citations. So when you're writing the lesson plan, I'd write it on a topic. I wouldn't connect it to an actual book. Because it'll sound right, but yeah. We've got a few.
Hello. Yeah, so my question is about like identifying the different AI tools, and do you know what we go by if we use like our own search data, the search text, like how do we go about checking whether the different tools protect our data that we enter to the tool?
Yes, I would go with the idea that you don't put any data in you don't want to be out in the whole world. You know, don't put any sensitive data, don't put any private. We have to tell people at companies, don't put your information in unless you want everybody to have it. But they always have a privacy statement. So any tool you go to, ChatGPT, they'll always have a privacy. Claude is the one that's got the most detailed privacy statements and things, and it'll tell you exactly what. But yeah, if you're nervous about any data, if it's anything private, don't put it in, because these are large language models. So it learns from your interactions what you're putting in. So you put that information in, and it's got it. It can't be extracted. It's like saying to the student, oh, I've taught you that lesson, but you actually have not paid your fees. So I would like that lesson back, please. It's impossible. It's already got the information. It's assimilated it into all the areas. So, yep, there's...
The activities that you were saying that they can do different languages, can you put that activity, that exercise that you say, interview for a job or a job interview, can that be done in other languages other than English? And can you put things like use this specific dialect of this in terms of Spanish, for example, that there are different countries with different Spanishes? Can they do that?
Yes, it can, and it's getting better. I just actually work with the British Council looking at language learning, and what we found is it's doing great things with language. All AI tools are. There were some things that it wasn't recognizing, like there's a language called Tagalog, and instead students that recognized their language as Tagalog, it was making them put Filipino, and it was kind of, well, no, I'm not really, I wouldn't put myself under that. But since then, I don't know whether it's since the reports came out, they're actually identifying more specifically to a specific area, a specific part of that language. So, and the large language models that learn quickly, let me give you one quick story, and I know we're probably time-wise. AI is being used at the moment to work out what sperm whales are saying to each other. I mean, how magical is that? They're able to get whatever language, whether it's languages we don't recognize, and being able to put them together and say, oh, that's what they're saying. I've got dogs. I cannot wait to find out what they're saying. They're probably all trying to order on Amazon, you know, more dog food or whatever. But, so in answer to your question, yes, so you could have them interviewed, different language. You'd have to check out their specific region, but yes. And I'm so excited for you, because yes. One more? Okay.
So many instructors use tools like SafeAssign, Turnitin for plagiarism checking for writing assignments. Now, generative AI has really changed what plagiarism looks like instead of getting it from someone else that's created for it. I'm seeing where vendors are coming out saying, oh, we've got this new plagiarism checking tool that can identify AI-created content. I'm also seeing things that's like, no, that's a bunch of bunk. Can you kind of clarify that? Like, are there really tools out there that can detect generative AI? And you know, beyond changing your assessment type, what's the future for plagiarism checking?
Yeah. Turnitin do not like me. I had a meeting with them at a conference, and they were saying, yeah, this works, and they actually said 98% accuracy, and he nearly cried. Oh, I'm so sorry for the guy, but he nearly cried by the end, because it was kind of, yeah, it doesn't actually do that. It can easily be worked around. That's putting spelling mistakes in. You could say to, students can say to ChatGPT, write this, make it sound like an undergraduate student, write in the tone of an undergraduate student, you know, so they can't. There's tools that are claiming they're getting closer, but it's, I would say, absolutely not at the moment. The only way they're going to do it is if they're able to put a flag attached to the text that can never be removed. That's the only way. But at the moment, we do not have anything. Do not have anything whatsoever. There's ways of getting around cheating or spotting it, but the best way is to rethink the assignments using these new tools to have some amazing assignments like the interviews and whatever else, and I can see Adam creeping closer. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to be around for a good amount of time, so please fire any questions if you see me.
Thanks, Helen. So as Helen mentioned, she's sticking around for